The Awakening. Commander Sarah Reeves stared through the viewport of the diplomatic vessel Horizon as it approached the massive ring structure of Nexus Station. After a century of observation, the Galactic Conclave had finally extended Earth an invitation to join their interstellar community. As Earth's chief diplomatic officer, the responsibility of representing humanity's interests fell squarely on her shoulders. "Quite the view, isn't it?" said Dr. Marcus Chen, the expedition's xenobiologist, joining her at the viewport. 17 different species built that station together. Some of them were at war just 2 centuries ago. Sarah nodded, her gray eyes reflecting the station's gleaming surface. And now we're the new kids on the block. Barely 200 years of spaceflight to our name. "Nervous?" Marcus asked. "Wouldn't you be?" The conclave reception hall buzzed with activity as delegates from across the galaxy mingled. Beings of all shapes and sizes moved through the space, some floating in anti-gravity fields, others slithering across special pathways, many walking on various configurations of limbs. The air was thick with translator chatter and unfamiliar scents. High Arbiter Colvex, a tall, willowy being with iridescent skin, approached the human delegation. "Commander Reeves, welcome to Nexus Station. The Conclave is pleased to finally welcome humanity to our community." Sarah bowed slightly. "The honor is ours, High Arbiter. Earth has long awaited this day." A deep, rumbling voice cut through their exchange. "So these are the humans. Not particularly impressive." Sarah turned to face a massive reptilian being with armored plates covering its torso. 4 yellow eyes regarded her with unconcealed disdain. "Commander Reeves, this is War Marshal Draz of the Cassari Imperium," Colvex said, diplomatic tension evident in his voice. Draz circled Sarah, his clawed feet clicking against the polished floor. "Your species has not experienced true war in over a century. You've grown soft in your isolated corner of the galaxy." Sarah maintained her composure. "We'd prefer to call it peaceful progress. War Marshal. Humanity has directed its energies towards science and exploration rather than conquest." "Peace," Draz scoffed, "a luxury afforded to those who have never faced the void's true dangers." Later, in their assigned quarters, Marcus found Sarah reviewing the profiles of various conclave species. The Cassari seemed charming, he quipped. "They control 32 star systems through military conquest," Sarah replied without looking up. "They'd been relatively contained for the past 50 years thanks to conclave restrictions, but they're constantly pushing boundaries." "Do you think they see us as a threat?" Marcus asked. Sarah finally looked up. "No, that's what worries me. They see us as prey." 3 days into the diplomatic mission, Sarah was granted access to the Conclave's scientific archives, a gesture of goodwill. With Marcus at her side, she explored the vast database, marveling at the accumulated knowledge of 17 spacefaring civilizations. "Sarah, take a look at this," Marcus called out, his voice unusually tense. She joined him at his terminal, where he pulled up records of an archaeological expedition to a system designated GX-435. The report detailed ruins estimated to be over 3 million years old, belonging to a species known only as the predecessors. "What am I looking for?" Sarah asked. Marcus pointed to a section of genetic sequencing. "This is a DNA sample recovered from the site. Now look at this." He pulled up another sequence alongside it. Sarah stared at the 2 sequences, understanding dawning. "That's human DNA. Not just similar, it's a 99.7% match, with some key differences in these highlighted sections." Marcus zoomed in on several genetic markers. According to the report, these sections appear to be artificial modifications. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything. The evidence indicates that the predecessors engineered humans, or at least a human-like species, 3 million years ago." Sarah felt a chill. "Does anyone else know about this connection?" "The report is classified but accessible to any Level 3 researcher. I'd wager the Kasari military intelligence has seen it. But why would an advanced species engineer humans? What purpose would it serve? Before Marcus could respond, an alert sounded throughout the station. Sarah's communicator buzzed with an incoming priority message. "Commander Reeves," came the voice of Captain Lee from the horizon. "We've just received word from Earth. The Europa colony has been attacked by unknown forces. Initial reports suggest Kasari involvement, though they're denying responsibility." Sarah's blood ran cold. Casualties. Over 2,000 colonists. The Europa defense grid was completely ineffective against the attackers' weapons. "I'll return to the ship immediately. Prepare for emergency protocols." As Sarah rushed toward the docking bay, Colvex intercepted her. "Commander, I've just been informed of the attack. The Conclave condemns this action and is launching an investigation. Say your condemnations, High Arbiter. 2,000 of my people are dead. I understand your anger, but please, do not act rashly. The Conclave system of justice takes years," Sarah finished. "Meanwhile, more colonies could be targeted." "There's something else you should know," Colvex said, lowering his voice. "The attack pattern matches previous Kasari incursions, but there was an anomaly in the aftermath. Several survivors exhibited unusual abilities: enhanced strength, accelerated healing, inexplicable tactical awareness. Our observers reported it." Sarah frowned. "What are you saying?" "The Kasari may have attacked your colony not to conquer it, but to test something. To see if certain dormant traits would activate under extreme threat." Back on the horizon, Sarah called an emergency meeting with her senior staff. Dr. Chen presented his findings from the Conclave archives. The predecessors apparently seeded multiple worlds with engineered species, he explained. "Based on what we've pieced together, humans appear to have been designed with certain dormant traits that may activate under extreme stress or threat." Captain Lee leaned forward. "Like a fight-or-flight response on a genetic level." "More sophisticated than that," Marcus replied. "The modifications appear to be tied to neural pathways, muscle density, reaction time, and even cognitive processing. In essence, we were designed to become more effective at survival when faced with extinction-level threats." "Are you suggesting," Sarah said slowly, "that the Kasari attacked Europa to trigger these dormant abilities?" "It's a working theory," Marcus admitted. "The Kasari military keeps extensive genetic research divisions. They may have discovered this connection before we did." Sarah's terminal chimed with an incoming transmission from Earth Defense Command. Admiral Takahashi's stern face appeared on screen. "Commander Reeves, we've received disturbing reports from multiple colonies. Following the Europa attack, we're seeing a pattern of unusual incidents: enhanced physical capabilities, inexplicable tactical insights, even limited instances of what appears to be non-technological communication between individuals under stress." "It's happening globally?" Sarah asked. "Not just globally, system-wide. Whatever was triggered at Europa is spreading like a contagion of awakening." 2 weeks after the Europa attack, the situation had escalated dramatically. Reports flooded in from across Earth's territories. Soldiers performing impossible feats of strength and endurance, civilians demonstrating uncanny survival instincts, and most disturbing of all, increasing incidents of apparent telepathic coordination during crisis situations. In the Conclave Emergency Council, War Marshal Draz watched the reports with mounting alarm. "The humans are awakening," he growled to his advisors, just as the ancient texts warned. "But they're still disorganized," his chief strategist countered. "Their abilities are emerging chaotically, without pattern or purpose." "For now," Draz said, "we must strike while they're vulnerable, before they understand what they're becoming." On the horizon, Sarah received an urgent communication from Dr. Chen, who had remained on Nexus Station to continue his research. "Sarah, I found something critical in a sealed section of the archives. The predecessors didn't just engineer humans, they created us as weapons. The dormant genes, their military designs meant to activate progressively under threat. The Europa attack was just the first trigger. Sarah felt her heart race. Weapons against what? That's just it. I don't know. The records are fragmented. But there's something else. The Kasari possess ancient texts that speak of the slumbering warriors. They fear what humanity might become if fully awakened. As if on cue, alarms blared across the ship. Captain Lee's voice came over the comm. "Commander, we have multiple Kasari warships dropping out of FTL near Earth's defensive perimeter. They're being joined by vessels from 3 other conclave species. They're moving against us," Sarah realized. "They want to eliminate the threat before we fully awaken." As Earth's defense fleet mobilized to meet the approaching armada, an unprecedented phenomenon spread through the human forces. Soldiers and pilots reported enhanced awareness, as if they could anticipate enemy movements before they occurred. Command structures flattened as field officers demonstrated tactical insights that matched or exceeded their superiors' experience. Sarah felt it too, a heightened clarity, a sense of connection to those around her. Decisions that would have required careful deliberation now came to her instinctively. "They've awakened something in us," she told Admiral Takahashi over a secure channel. "Something that was always there, waiting." The Admiral nodded grimly. "The question is, what are we becoming, and can we control it?" As the Kasari fleet approached Earth, humanity prepared for its greatest test, and the full awakening of abilities dormant for millions of years. The Reckoning. The Kasari battle fleet, supported by ships from the Vulturi hegemony, the Orden Collective, and the Myrax domain, advanced toward Earth's orbital defense platforms. Over 800 vessels against Earth's modest fleet of 120 ships. On the bridge of the EDF flagship Intrepid, Admiral Takahashi watched the tactical display with unnatural calm. Beside him, Sarah Reeves observed the Admiral's eyes, focused yet distant, as if seeing beyond the immediate battle. "They've arranged their fleet in a classic pincer formation," Takahashi said. "Standard Kasari doctrine for overwhelming force." "But you see something else," Sarah stated, not a question. The Admiral nodded slightly. "Their formation has a rhythm to it, a pattern they don't even realize they're creating." His hands moved across the tactical display, marking points in seemingly random locations. Here, here, and here, invisible corridors of approach. Ship captains across the Earth fleet received their orders, positioning their vessels in what appeared to be a scattered, indefensible arrangement. On the enemy flagship, War Marshal Draz observed the human response with disdain. "They aren't even attempting a proper defensive posture," he growled. "Perhaps the awakening has driven them mad." His tactical officer, more cautious, studied the human deployments. "Marshal, there's something unusual about their positioning. Our predictive algorithms can't determine their strategic intent." "Because there is none," Draz dismissed. "Begin the attack sequence." As the Kasari fleet advanced, the human ships remained motionless, maintaining their seemingly random positions. Then, at some unseen signal, the Earth vessels moved, not away from the enemy advance, but through it, slipping between the approaching ships in maneuvers that should have been impossible given relative velocities and reaction times. "How are they anticipating our vectors so precisely?" demanded Draz as human ships appeared where they couldn't possibly be, their smaller vessels dancing between the massive Kasari warships. The initial exchange of fire favored the humans despite their numerical disadvantage. Earth vessels seemed to know exactly when enemy weapons would fire, adjusting their positions milliseconds before energy beams lanced through space. Their return fire struck with uncanny precision, targeting weapon emplacements and propulsion systems rather than attempting to destroy the larger ships outright. Back on Nexus Station, Dr. Chen worked frantically, delving deeper into the classified predecessor archives. Colvex had granted him emergency access to sections previously restricted even to conclave members. The slumbering warriors were never meant to be purely destructive, Chen muttered as he pieced together fragmented records. The predecessors designed multiple guardians for multiple purposes. His research was interrupted by a priority communication from Sarah. Her face on the screen showed intense focus, her pupils dilated in a way he'd never seen before. "Marcus, something's happening to all of us," she said without preamble. "It's like a collective consciousness is forming. Not mind-reading, exactly, but a shared tactical awareness." "The second phase," Marcus breathed. "The archives mention progressive awakening under continued threat. The first phase was individual enhancement, strength, speed, healing. The second phase is coordinative awareness. There's more to it than that," Sarah said. "I can sense intentions, emotions from others nearby. Not thoughts, but something deeper. And the enemy. We can't read them, if that's what you're asking, but we can predict them with increasing accuracy. It's as if we're processing thousands of subtle cues simultaneously." Despite the humans' unexpected capabilities, the sheer numerical advantage of the Cassari coalition began to tell. Earth ships, while eerily effective, still succumbed to concentrated fire. Casualties mounted as the battle expanded through the solar system. On Mars, the Colonial Defense Force found itself surrounded by Vulture landing craft. Colonel Maya Diaz, commanding the meager garrison of 3,000 troops against nearly 20,000 enemy soldiers, felt something shift in her awareness as the situation grew desperate. Without fully understanding how, she began coordinating her forces with impossible precision. Troops moved as if they'd rehearsed maneuvers they'd never been taught. Civilian engineers repurposed mining equipment into effective defensive weapons through intuitive leaps of understanding. Most remarkably, when communications were jammed, units continued to operate in perfect synchronization. Similar reports came in from across the solar system. Humans facing overwhelming odds yet fighting with unprecedented effectiveness. Not just military personnel, but civilians, demonstrating abilities that defied explanation. Dr. Chen's research led him to a sealed chamber deep within Nexus Station, where the most ancient predecessor artifacts were kept. With Kolvex's reluctant permission, he accessed a crystalline device that pulsed with subtle energy. "This is a genetic activator," Kolvex explained. "We've never dared use it. According to the records, it can trigger dormant genetic sequences across vast distances. The predecessors left fail-safes," Chen realized. Ways to accelerate the awakening process if needed. While the battle raged in Earth's solar system, the conclave remained divided. Some species pushed for intervention against the Cassari coalition, while others advocated for containing the human threat. "You don't understand what's happening," Chen told the Emergency Council. "Humans weren't designed as conquerors. The predecessors created guardians, protectors with a profound capacity for empathy alongside their martial abilities." "Convenient interpretation," scoffed the Vulture representative. "Yet we see them fighting with unnatural skill." "Fighting defensively," Chen corrected. "Examine the battle records. Human ships prioritized disabling enemy weapons over destroying vessels. Ground forces established defensive perimeters rather than launching counterattacks. Even as they awaken, humans retain their essential nature." In Earth orbit, the Intrepid took heavy damage as it positioned itself to protect a civilian evacuation transport. Admiral Takahashi, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead, maintained his preternatural focus on the tactical display. "New Cassari reinforcements arriving," reported his tactical officer. "Estimate 60 additional capital ships." Sarah, who had returned to the flagship during the battle, felt a spike of fear, not for herself, but for Earth. As that fear peaked, something new stirred within her consciousness, and she sensed, within humans throughout the system. "Admiral," she said quietly, "I think we're entering the third phase." Across the solar system, humans engaged in the conflict experienced a profound shift. The tactical awareness they'd developed expanded beyond immediate battle needs, connecting them not just to each other, but to a deeper understanding of their adversaries. In the Martian defense, Colonel Diaz suddenly found herself able to anticipate not just enemy movements but motivations. "They're afraid," she told her officers, "not just of defeat, but of us, of what we represent. On the Intrepid's bridge, Admiral Takahashi closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, he issued orders with absolute conviction. All ships execute pattern Aegis. Prioritize communication systems over weapons. We need to speak to them. Speak to them. His XO questioned. Sir, they're trying to exterminate us. Because they don't understand, Sarah intervened. But now we do. Human ships throughout the system began a coordinated maneuver of breathtaking complexity. Instead of continuing to fight defensively, they now moved directly toward enemy vessels. Not firing, but positioning themselves in a pattern that effectively neutralized the coalition's tactical advantage. On the Kasari flagship, alarms blared as sensors detected energy buildups across the human fleet. They're preparing a synchronized attack, warned Draz's tactical officer. Instead, every human ship simultaneously activated communication arrays, broadcasting on all frequencies. The message was simple, broadcast by Admiral Takahashi, but somehow carrying the weight of collective human understanding. We know why you fear us. We know what we were made to be. But we choose what we will become. At that moment, on Nexus Station, Dr. Chen made a decision. With Colvex watching tensely, he activated the predecessor device. A pulse of energy spread outward, invisible but profound. Throughout the solar system, humans felt the pulse resonate with something deep within their genetic code. The final barriers fell away, and the full scope of their design purpose became clear. They had not been created as weapons of war, but as guardians against extinction. The predecessors, facing their own end, had seeded the galaxy with protector species, each designed to awaken only when truly needed. Humans were just one of several such creations, engineered with both the capacity for war and a profound drive toward peace. With this realization came the third and final phase of awakening. Not greater battle prowess, but greater understanding. Human consciousness expanded to grasp the fears driving their attackers, the complex history that had led to this moment, and the possible futures branching from it. On the Kasari flagship, War Marshal Draz prepared to order a final desperate assault when his communications officer reported, "Marshal, we're receiving targeted transmissions. They're speaking directly to individual ship commanders, in their native languages, addressing them by name." "How is that possible?" Draz demanded. "Our encryption. They're not hacking our systems," the officer said, bewildered. "Somehow, they just know." Throughout the Coalition fleet, confusion spread as human voices spoke directly to key personnel, showing impossible knowledge of their lives, their fears, their reasons for fighting. Not threatening, but understanding. Colonel Diaz, leading the Martian defense, found herself able to speak the Volturi language without ever having studied it, negotiating directly with the enemy commander. "We were made as guardians," she explained, "not conquerors. The threat you fear isn't us, but what made us necessary." On the Intrepid, Sarah and Admiral Takahashi coordinated the unprecedented diplomatic offensive. "The predecessors wouldn't have created us without purpose," Sarah told Draz in a direct communication. "They saw something coming, something that required guardians throughout the galaxy. Convenient justification for your species' suddenly emerging powers." Draz growled, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "Then explain this," Sarah challenged. "If we were designed for conquest, why haven't we attacked your homeworlds? Our ships have penetrated your defenses repeatedly during this battle, yet we've only disabled weapons, never targeted civilian infrastructure." The tide of battle slowly shifted, not through military victory, but through understanding. Ship by ship, commander by commander, the coalition forces faced a truth they couldn't deny. The humans they'd feared were fighting only to protect, not to destroy. 3 days after the battle began, a ceasefire was declared. Representatives from all involved species gathered on Nexus Station, where Dr. Chen presented his findings from the predecessor archives. The predecessors faced extinction from a threat they couldn't defeat directly, he explained. So they created guardian species, seeded throughout the galaxy, each with unique capabilities designed to awaken when needed. "And you believe humans are one such species?" asked the Volturi representative skeptically. "We know we are," Sarah replied. "Just as we now know the Myrax were also engineered, though for different purposes. Their heightened empathic abilities complement our tactical ones." Murmurs spread through the gathering as the Myrax delegation shifted uncomfortably. Their genetic uniqueness had been their most closely guarded secret. "The predecessors didn't just create weapons," Chen continued. "They created balanced guardians, with powers tempered by conscience. Humans awaken to their full potential only under existential threat, and even then, our nature drives us to protect rather than conquer." War Marshal Draz, his usual arrogance subdued, addressed the council. "The ancient texts speak of a greater darkness to come. If the predecessors created these guardians, perhaps there was reason. In the aftermath of what became known as the Awakening crisis, humanity found itself transformed. The abilities triggered during the conflict didn't fade completely but settled into a new equilibrium. Enhanced cognition, physical capabilities, and the rudimentary collective awareness remained, though at reduced levels without the stimulus of immediate threat. More profoundly, humanity's understanding of its purpose had changed. They had been created as guardians against some ancient foreseen threat, not as conquerors, but as protectors of life itself. 1 month after the ceasefire, the conclave voted to create a new branch dedicated to investigating the predecessor legacy and the potential threat they had prepared against. Sarah Reeves was appointed as Earth's representative to this predecessor initiative. In her new office on Nexus Station, Sarah met with Dr. Chen and Cole Vex to discuss their findings. "The awakening was just the beginning," Chen said, reviewing data from across human territories. "Our people are still changing, still adapting." "And the other guardian species?" Sarah asked. "We've confirmed the Myrax." "Who else?" Cole Vex brought up a star chart showing dozens of highlighted worlds. "Based on genetic markers, we've identified 6 potential guardian species so far, each with different specializations, different strengths. A defensive array," Sarah mused, "positioned across the galaxy, designed to awaken when needed."